Welcome to the Rig Doctor podcast, where I'm giving out remedies to soothe your ailing tone and fix your sick pedal boards. I'm your host, Mason Marangella, aka the Rig Doctor. I've been building rigs for over a decade for many of the industry's top pros, and now I'm giving away all my secrets to DIYers just like you. I'm giving away all of my tips, tricks, resources, and easy hacks that I've learned over the years so you can build a pedal board just like a pro. If you want to support this podcast, you can do it in a bunch of different ways. Easiest way is to write us a review on iTunes, or you could follow us on social media, places like Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube. You can also support us financially by purchasing one of my products, Vertex Effects, from any of our authorized dealers all around the world. Or you could become a member of our Patreon. We have several Patreon memberships as low as $4.99 a month that give you exclusive access to private live streams, Q&As, exclusive deals and discounts on Vertex products, as well as early access to new product releases. Also, you can get personalized one-on-one phone and email conversations with me, the Rig Doctor, to coach you through your next rig build. This could be as in-depth as troubleshooting a problem on your pedal board in real time with me, or some emails advising you on next steps on certain pieces of gear to buy and good stuff just like that. I don't want money, though, to be the reason that you can't engage with the Patreon side. So if you don't have the means to do it at this particular time, that's no problem. We actually offer a free version of our standard account at no charge if means are an issue. That means if you just send us an email requesting a free account, we grant 100% of those accounts, no charge whatsoever. We just trust that once things have changed for you and you can afford the $4.99 a month, you let us know. But until then, your account remains free. I also want to give a big shout out to our sponsor, Blue Microphones. Kevin Walt at Blue Mics is just the man. He gave us everything. We have Yeti mics, we have boom arms, we have pop filters, we have everything that a podcaster would need, and we supremely appreciate that. Thank you to Blue Microphones. In this episode, we're speaking with Rhett Shull. Rhett has been a longtime friend of mine, has used several of our pedals over time, and I've sort of watched him develop as a YouTuber. Now he's about to eclipse 200,000 subscribers on his YouTube channel. He was also the guy that seeded me, kind of got me involved in the whole YouTube scene when he came over to my house. We built a rig together and he filmed it and put it out on his channel, and it kind of started the whole, even my name, The Rig Doctor, came from him. So cool story with that. He talks about kind of the journey through YouTube, how current guitar players that are kind of on a temporary hiatus because of COVID-19 can pivot to get into the YouTube game and his advice for that. We also go through a ton of gear recommendations for guitars, amps, and pedals. And we kind of go through section by section. He talks about a lot of his favorites and why, and then also how he evaluates gear. What are the kind of the criteria that he uses to know whether it's going to work or not? So he gives some really good distinctions as to that. And then we kind of do a little bit of a loose Q&A based on some of the questions that were in our live stream that was part of this podcast at the very end, that are questions about his influences and different gear questions. So stay tuned for that until the end. Without any further delay, I bring you Rhett Shull. Yeah. Well, since we're now live and people are getting it, we have none other than Rhett Shull, and the man that I credit not only with being, the premier guitar YouTuber, it's certainly my favorite. You do a great job of balancing, I think, not only the aesthetic, but also the content piece. You're a fantastic guitar player, and the person that they see on YouTube is not different than the person that actually is you. And so that's another benefit. And the other, claim that I tell people as often as I can when it comes up is that you are the one that started calling me the Rig Doctor. when we built your rig.
Started, there's a backstory behind it. First of all, thank you for the kind words. I really appreciate it. I receive it. I don't feel that way about what I do in my channel, but I'm very grateful that you see it that way, and hopefully other people see it that way. The rig doctor thing just kind of happened organically. I think the way I remember it was when we were building my board in your garage workshop there. Things escalated from calling each other doctor to, you became the rig doctor, and then it just kind of formed organically into this thing. It's like, oh man, if you started doing YouTube things, you could be the rig doctor and teach people how to doctor their pedal boards or whatever. So yeah, it wasn't like I came out and just bestowed the rig doctor name upon you. It kind of happened organically. But
I just remember that you had said when we were building the rig and you were videotaping, because I wasn't doing, the only YouTube stuff that we had out at that time, I think, was just demonstrational stuff. And you said, oh, you should really just, you have a lot of information. You should consider, doing something like this. I think it would work well on YouTube.
Yeah.
And turns out, it's not the volume of weekly viewers as Rhett Shull's channel, of course. But I think that the content is we have a pretty steady group of people that are watching it and commenting and being a part of it. So for that, I'm grateful, but I think it also is something that very few people that are doing the thing that I'm doing, where we're manufacturing pedals, other than Josh Scott and Brian Wampler. I don't really know of a lot of guys that are doing pedals that are really just giving free tutorial or free information to people just because. Without agenda. And so I'm glad that they're doing it, and they certainly were doing it before I was. But we all kind of have our own different things that we really specialize in, and I think that's cool.
Well, I think, I got the idea from, again, being in the workshop with you for a couple of days and watching you build my board. And that's all I did was basically watch and hold a camera. And there were so many just little tricks and things that you were doing. And at that point, I had built probably 6 or 7 different iterations of my own pedal board, and every single one of them had some kind of massive shortcoming, whether it be solderless cables or just the bad. And one of my early videos actually that I made was on the previous iteration of my board that I had before I came to you. It was just too much, man. I had too much on this pedal board, and it was overwhelming, and I was messing up during shows because I would step on one pedal and then also step on another, and it was just a hot mess. So there's so many things that I saw you do, just in the way you were laying out the board and the way you were wiring everything and your workflow, how you went about things, that was really fascinating to me. And I think it's cool that you're sharing that information. And it's just another way that people can learn to do this stuff. And it's interesting, talking about these other content creators and people out here. It's like everybody kind of has their own take on this industry and how things are done. And I think that's cool, man. I think it's one of the best things about YouTube.
Yeah, and I'm really, again, I can't thank you enough for kind of how much you contributed to kind of encouraging me to go this direction, because I think that it's really a great thing for people to share their stories, or whatever their context is, even if it's, dissimilar or similar to other things that are out there. I think that everybody kind of has their own spin. And, I guess you could say there's a lot of guys that do, videos in the guitar world, but, to me, like, yours are just, they're so interesting. Your approach is really interesting. I think, again, the aesthetic is so alluring. It's like watching something that has been produced by, you're like the Steven Spielberg of guitar demo videos and just guitar related content videos.
I prefer Scorsese, but thank you. Yeah.
Scorsese.
No,
There's not. Who is the Tarantino of guitar YouTubers?
Oh my God, that is the highest praise right there.
Who is that?
In my book, is the Tarantino of guitar players. I don't know because I don't know anybody that uses grotesque amounts of theater blood and gore in their videos. Maybe I should take that on. Maybe I could be the Tarantino of guitar YouTube. Well, thanks, man. I mean, honestly, the channel is, I'm always trying to come up with new stuff. Somebody, I think, sent me an email or something a couple weeks ago, and they told me, they're like, man, the thing I like about your channel is every single one of your videos is different, even if it's part of the same series or it's part of, the same kind of thing. Everything you do is different. And I thought that was really cool. That's not an intentional choice, but I think it's a product of my like ADD, it not being able to sit still and stay in the same place for a long time. So I'm constantly trying to get better. And there's a lot of people that I really look up to on this platform. In terms of, guitar YouTubers, obviously Rick Beato, and then guys like Paul Davids. I mean, dude, the videos that Paul makes constantly blow my mind as to how well they're produced and thought out and put together. I mean, it's insane. The guy, I think he's the king of guitar YouTube for that kind of stuff. So he's a guy that I really look up to. And then Adam Neely, not strictly guitar YouTube, but Adam, his videos are so well researched and so well thought out and put together and informative. Every time I watch some of those guys' videos, it's like, man, what am I doing? I gotta step my game up, But that's cool, man. That's part of the thing, And I've been lucky enough to get to know these guys and girls like Mary Spender, and we've all become friends outside of YouTube, which has been really cool. And it's good. We connect every now and then and talk and encourage one another and push one another. It's a really cool community that's forming here,
Yeah, well, I appreciate when I have difficulty on our channel, or I have a thumbnail that's just not connecting. Rhett still will intervene and give me some coaching on that. So I always really appreciate that.
I'm always trying to figure it out myself, man.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing about YouTube, and this. It's my least favorite part of making YouTube videos. It's the title and thumbnail thing. You have to play the game, and I hate it. I hate having to try and come up with these titles and these thumbnails that grab people's attention. That's just the way the algorithm is designed. And you can have I've had this so many times where I made a video that I was really proud of, that I felt was really good, and it just didn't do well because of a bad title or a bad thumbnail. Yep. And it's just it kind of sucks, but it's the name of the game. If you're gonna do this, with that kind of stuff, I always try, and if it is kind of an edgy title or something like that, I always try to make sure that whatever the title or the thumbnail is insinuating, I deliver in the video, that it's not like true clickbait, because I hate that stuff.
It's hard because I think it's a real temptation. You can certainly see, I've certainly, I think, been guilty of it to a degree. It's not like it's totally off topic or something like that. I mean, if we say we're cooking steak, we're still cooking steak. But, there can sometimes, I can certainly see that to play that game. But I think actually in the long run, it ends up working against you in terms of its optimization. Because if people are cooking there and then there's this huge drop off, then you're not going to end up optimized either. So,
YouTube makes you play the game, man. It's all about the almighty algorithm. We all have to appease in some way. Yeah, man. I wish we could just make videos and just put them out and not worry about it. But
yeah, man. Al Gore's got the lockdown on algorithm. Al Gore is just owning that algorithm.
Oh my god!
That was a Corey Wong thing. He talks about the algorithm in one of his videos.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So shout out to Al Gore.
And Corey Wong.
Yeah, and Corey Wong. Well, we're getting a little in the weeds. It doesn't seem to have been affecting our viewership so far, but what I really want to talk about three different things, and I kind of prefaced it, I think, a little bit to you, but maybe I didn't completely. I really want to talk about how you evaluate gear, because you do a lot of it. You get a lot of stuff. You have a tremendous amount of exposure to the newest, latest, and greatest stuff. So how do you evaluate gear for yourself? And so, like, deciding what you're going to put in your rig. I think the second thing is your recommendations to people. I kind of want to go through different styles of pedals. I want to get your recommendations for people. And then I also want to talk about, like, you're in this you've put yourself in this incredible position with what you've developed through your YouTube channel, that, like, a lot of guys that are touring guitar players right now or sidemen are scrambling to pivot to get to do what you're doing, because you really, one of the brilliant things that you've done is you are so diverse in how you earn a living that, you know, I'm speaking without fully knowing, but from all appearances, you have not slowed down at all. You have your foot on the gas, and you're creating content that's really great. And your lifestyle is not predicated upon you being out on the road all the time. And a lot of guys, they've structured their life where that's really their only way to earn income. So kind of getting your take on like how guys that are making this pivot right now, where they've been sidemen or they've been touring guys, and they're fantastic guitar players like you, but they haven't sort of invested in diversifying where they earn their living. What, like, your advice to those guys, how they can get into doing this? What's kind of the roadmap, according to Rhett Shull, sort of thing, to be able to have some success at doing the YouTube thing, and also the tenacity, because, you know, one side that people don't see that you talk to me a lot about is that you were doing this for a few years, and you know it was really tough. Yeah, and so there's a certain amount of tenacity that you have to have.
It still is really tough. I mean, you know, just speak to that quickly. I talk about this a lot, and maybe it annoys people, but in the last year, this is my version of CrossFit. Instead of doing CrossFit and talking about it all the time, I've started cycling, and I'm talking about it all the time. And I know nobody cares, but I like it, so I'm going to talk about it. There's a saying in cycling that it never gets easier, you just go faster. And I think that applies to anything that you're doing in this sort of creative, self-employed, hired gun, whatever artist kind of gig thing. It's still just as hard as it was 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago, when I started making the videos. It's just now more people are watching. It's not like it gets way easier. You know, you hit 100,000 subscribers and you can kind of like sit back and let your foot off the gas and be like, oh man, I've made it. It's like, no, it's just, in fact, I think there's more pressure, and it makes it harder because I know there's more people watching. There's more people with opinions. There's more people, you know, sharing those opinions and talking about them, and people love what you do, people hate what you do. The pressure just ratchets up. So I mean, we can get more into that. I know there's like a couple of things to unpack there.
I mean, we can go into that now, and then we can circle back to gear stuff at the end. I'm pretty flexible on what it is, and I think that what you're saying, I think is certainly apropos. And I think anybody that has a following, it has any sort of influence, you know, the bigger you get, the more value and influential is that you are in terms of what your voice is. And certainly, you know, I would say that one thing I appreciate about what you've done is that you know, I would say that you do. I mean, I think some of it is less editorialized than others, but ultimately, you do give an opinion on stuff. And I think that it's really hard to do that in this space because it can be very polarizing if you have, you know, brands that you're presumably relying on that are going to be sending you gear and stuff like that. And some of them don't really want to know what you think. They only want to know what you think so long as the news is good.
Yeah. And with those brands, honestly, I don't work with them. With that kind of stuff, you know, people, I take some criticism sometimes online because people think I'm, you know, out here just selling stuff or talking about stuff. I don't get paid for reviews, or I don't really do gear demos. I do kind of honest, unfiltered opinion reviews that I don't take money for. Yeah. And I don't put gear on my channel that I don't like and wouldn't recommend. And so, you know, that kind of speaks to one of your questions, talking about recommendations. It's, you know, I just put out a video like an hour or whatever ago on the Torpedo Captor X. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I was genuinely excited about. Aside from YouTube, as a gigging guitar player, the Captor X was something I was legitimately excited about because for a long time I've had trouble with stage volume. I've had trouble with monitoring and all these other issues. I've used the aux live before and it sounds great, but it has its issues in terms of a live context. It's kind of too big and has a weird power supply. It's weird. So I was really excited to check it out. And, you know, Two Notes offered to pay me for a video, and I ended up telling them like, no, I don't want money. I'm going to talk about this thing and share my honest opinion on it. My opinion on it generally is it's a good piece of gear that I would highly recommend to any of my friends, any of my guitar playing peers who are in the market for something like that. It's got its drawbacks. It's not perfect. It has a few flaws, and I talk about them because I feel like I have a responsibility, especially as the channel has grown. There's a portion of my audience that watches for my opinion on gear, and I'm making the video that I would want to watch if I was in the market for that piece of gear. Like if I was thinking about spending $550 on a Captor X, which is a lot of money, especially for a working musician, I want to know what's good about it. I want to know what's bad about it and be able to form my own opinion on it, regardless of what the dude on the YouTube box is saying, you know?
Right.
So that's kind of my philosophy behind the gear videos that I do, is like, you know, trying to be as transparent and honest about this stuff as I can. And sometimes that means I get a piece of gear in the mail and I play it and I'm like, I'm just not into this, and it's not going to make it on the channel.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and it's a hard thing to negotiate. I mean, I think you more than me, you know, I'm not doing any sort of gear reviews, and if there's overlap or something like that, it's usually you know, between other people's gear and stuff like that. It's usually coincidental. It's not usually that they sought me out or anything like that to do anything. But
yeah.
But yeah, I think that's the real thing. And I don't know the guy's name, but he's the guy that does 5 Watt World.
Oh, Keith. Yeah,
Keith's
awesome.
Yeah, he always puts some nice comments and stuff like that on our videos, and I always appreciate that. But one thing I really like about him in sort of his explanation of his channel is that he tells his story only the way that he could tell it, and I think that's really valuable. And I think I think by not editorializing or not, you know, I think by giving sort of a spectrum of feedback and things like that, I think it's important, because I think that having honest reviews is really tough, and sometimes when money's involved, it's really hard to be objective.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And look, man, there's always going to be people that have their opinions, and that's fine, man. I welcome criticism and the opinions that people have. I just, you know, when it comes to gear, and when it comes to sharing your opinions online, you know, you're stepping into a world of, you know, all kinds of stuff, especially in the guitar community. You know, the guitar players are a very opinionated and passionate group of people, and they'll let you know when they like something, and they'll let you know when they hate something. And you know, that's fine. I mean, that's part of the game, man. That's part of being on the internet. And you know, now making a living making videos about music and playing guitar and the gear that is associated with that stuff, you know?
Yeah, so with that in mind, what do you think is sort of what's your sort of, you know, if you can come up with a cookbook recipe, Rhett Shull's 10 steps to YouTube success for all of the musicians right now that are not able to tour, they're trying to get into the YouTube game, and I can certainly see a lot of them are trying. Some of them successfully. I think Tom Bukovac is one of those guys that got into it. That you know, it's super, you know, basic iPhone, you know, but man, he's killing it. But obviously, he had a lot of cachet running into that YouTube channel that I think it certainly helps propel it. But somebody who is, you know, a sideman for somebody, what do you think is the move right now, the pivot to make?
So I've had this conversation with a few friends of mine who are in the exact situation. It's really that you just described. It's really hard because, you know, right now, guys who have made a living touring and traveling and gigging, players that are much better and more accomplished players than I am, you know, and friends of mine, they're not working right now. And so I've had a few of these conversations of like, hey man, I'm thinking about doing this. What does it look like and everything? The first thing to know, YouTube is a terrible thing to get into to make money. In terms of the amount of time it takes on the front end, your time investment versus basically your return on investment in terms of time versus money is so far out of whack that anybody who knows anything about money and business would tell you, do not start a YouTube channel. Yeah. And I don't say that to discourage people. I say that to just be completely honest. You are, if you're starting from scratch, you are anywhere from 8 to 15 months of solid full-time or almost full-time work on the platform before you start to see any kind of monetary response from it. Yeah. That's been my experience. That's been the experience of my peers here on YouTube for the most part. You have your exceptions like your Tom Bukovacs and your Rick Beatos and people that just get on the platform and blow up. But those people are very, very few and far between. I mean, Keith from 5 Watt World's a perfect example. You know, I knew Keith when, you know, his channel had a couple thousand subscribers, and he had been uploading videos for well over a year before anything took off. And then when it took off, it really took off. So that's the first thing to understand. YouTube is not something where you throw up a couple of videos and then you have gear companies, you know, coming and knocking your door down, and you got all this Google money coming in. It's really not that lucrative. But that aside, if you still have the desire to do it, you have an opinion, you want to share your voice, your perspective, you want to teach people, you want to entertain people, you want to do all that stuff, then I would encourage you to start a YouTube channel. And I would encourage you to take your time and be consistent. I think that's the biggest element to growing any kind of following, whether it's a social media following or, you know, people following your music and coming to your shows. Consistency is key. So finding an upload schedule that works for you. If it's 1 video a week, if it's 2 videos a week, if it's 2 videos a month, whatever that is, finding that upload schedule and sticking to it and continuing to just throw stuff against the wall and seeing what sticks.
The spaghetti technique.
What's that?
The spaghetti technique.
Yeah, the spaghetti technique. Yeah, the patented spaghetti technique. So, I mean, and I'm still doing that. I'm still trying stuff out and seeing what sticks. I have a few new ideas for videos because of the pandemic, and I'm not gigging right now. I'm trying to come up with new ideas for content, and I have a few ideas that I'm really excited about that I want to make that I have no idea how they're going to do, but I'm going to make it and try it out anyways. Yeah. Yeah, man, I think it's really about consistency, and it's about honesty. Like just share your perspective, share your knowledge, you know, be transactional. People want something from you when they're watching a video. They want to learn something. They want your opinion on something. But above all else, I think it's important to find your voice, be honest, be transparent, and just share your perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, and so much harder said than done.
Yeah. It's a tough, like I said, man, it's people have a weird perspective on YouTube. People think that we're all millionaires and we put up these videos and just rake in the cash. And it's like, dude, it's not that way. It's a lot of work and a lot of investment and time on the front end before you start to see any kind of response from subscriber growth, from views, and from monetization. Yeah. It's so it sounds like, to summarize your perspective, it is something to do in parallel with other activities, not something to be relied upon as something that, if you're a musician right now, that you're going to start investing in creating these videos and that you're going to see an income stream that is any semblance of making a living close to what you had before. Yeah. Now, I will say, from a business perspective, you know, because times are tough right now for players, the first thing that I would do, going back, if I was starting over, in conjunction with starting my YouTube channel, I would also start some kind of tuition material. So a video course, you know, a PDF booklet, whatever it is. Most professional musicians have a skill set and a knowledge base that's highly valued by a lot of people. Think of how many guitar teachers or people who are doing Skype lessons and all this kind of stuff there are out there right now. So that really is, if you are trying to monetize this and make this an effective way to earn a living, having some kind of tuition-based sort of product, for lack of a better term, that you can push people towards, when they come to your channel, they like what you do, they like your style, they want to learn how to play like you, whatever it is. If you can funnel those people to something, hey, I have a video course, I have a playing course, or, oh, hey, here's a course I put together on the Nashville number system, or, oh, here's a course I put together on the caged system. That is a much more effective way of monetizing your time, because it takes a lot of time to make these videos and to put these courses together. I mean, it's more than a full-time job. Yeah. And so that's part of the conversation I've had with some friends of mine who are really, really talented players who teach Skype lessons. The thing with Skype lessons is you can't scale that. Right. You only have so many hours in the week that you can fill up teaching essentially what is mostly the same material to a variety of different students. In my opinion, a much better use of your time and your energy is to teach those lessons, that content, that curriculum to a camera, and either edit it and produce it yourself or invest in someone to edit it for you, and then try to build at least some kind of following on Instagram, Facebook maybe, or YouTube, that then you can scale that video course at a much bigger rate. I think it's a better investment of your time. And that's what I've been telling a lot of my friends, in Nashville and here in Atlanta, people who are incredible players who are out of work right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I think these are all great pieces of advice. I think certainly understanding the diversity of income sources, I think, is important. I think it's certainly something that, as we see, this sort of unusual time kind of revert back to some semblance of normalcy, I think certainly you're going to see musicians in particular have their hands in a lot of different pots, and you have a huge leg up on a lot of guys, in that you probably have one of the best and most established business cards out there for YouTube-based guitar players that actually are on tour. Because that perspective is fairly unique in the YouTube atmosphere as far as people that are doing regular YouTube content.
Well, and I think it's the name of the game now for musicians, especially hired gun players. You've got to have multiple irons in the fire. Yeah. If you're gonna really make a living, you've got to have a couple of different income streams, and that's going to look different for different players. It could be you're touring and you're teaching Skype lessons, and then you're doing some video demo work, getting hooked up with a manufacturer and playing on their video demos or whatever. The point is to try and diversify your income streams. And what I think is really important nowadays for musicians is to do something that you own and that has your name on it. Yeah. Whether that is a YouTube channel or a website, whatever it is, something that because as hired guns, you're working and you may be touring and playing in these stadiums and arenas, but at the end of the day, you're making a flat rate and you don't own any of that. Right. You're it's a work for hire situation. You're a contractor. Yeah. So when times are good, they're really good. But when the gig dries up, or maybe the artist you're playing for decides they want to go in a different direction with their band, or maybe the sessions dry up or whatever, you don't really have anything solid to fall back on. Yeah. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. I just think that a better model nowadays is to do something that you own and that has, you have sweat equity in and financial equity in, that can sustain you when things start to dry up, Yeah.
I think it's a huge thing. I think it's a huge thing that I think a lot of people are going to have to contend with now that we're in this situation, and I appreciate. I'm sure that a lot of people appreciate that advice. If I know not everybody who's watching is a professional musician, but I think that I think it will also give some people some empathy to understand this particular how this is affecting musicians and kind of.
Well, I think it's important, no matter what you do for a living, the lesson that I've learned over the last 2 years in doing this YouTube thing is diversification of your skill set is one of the most important things you can do. I got into videos and videography just because I was interested in it. You know, I bought my first DSLR camera because I was starting to tour and I wanted to like document my tours. I wanted to capture the stuff just from my own, you know, being able to reminisce and maybe show my family one day or whatever. Yeah. And I had no idea when I got into videography at the time that it would become a huge part of how I make a living, making videos and producing visual content. But, you know, the same thing with mixing and engineering. I interned at Rick Beato's studio for years, learning from him and from Ken Lanyon about mixing and how to make records and how to play on records. And, you know, those skill sets have really, really helped me out and allowed me to do what I'm able to do today. And I'm by no means the best or anywhere close to the best at anything I do. I'm not the best guitar player. There's so many guitar players out there that are infinitely better musicians and more musical than me. There's so many better video producers out there that are better than I am. There's so many mix engineers and writers and people that do what I do way better than I do, but I've been able to put together this sort of unique kind of smorgasbord of skill sets that has allowed me to do this thing that I do and kind of carve out a path for myself. So I think that's really important for not just musicians, but anybody out there who's got a job, really. Learn something that you're interested in, and it could serve you or open some doors for you down the line that you have never thought were possible.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said. I mean, you sort of know how to do all the means and modes of production are sort of within your hands. At least as far as what you do, you know how to be an engineer, you know how to record, you know all these other things. You know, and if you need a second set of hands, you have a lovely, I guess assistant CEO to Shull Incorporated in Tilly.
Yeah, she's my executive producer. She's the one that kind of keeps the train on the tracks.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, well, I think that this is all really great stuff, and I really appreciate it. I'm sure that again, that some of the people that are watching this that are musicians, I'm sure that they love your take on.
I see Camilo Volandia in the chat. If you don't know, Camilo is a monster guitar player.
Yes, he is.
He's scary good.
He gets all the LA tones, man. Dude. He knows how to get all the old Landau and Michael Thompson and Dan Huff tones.
And Camilo's one of those guys. He's a real deal touring guy. Like, you know, he's one of the dudes that really, really does it. So he was asking, do I have a specific work schedule? And no, I can't stick to a schedule. I don't do well with routine and schedules and staying on task. When I get finally focused on something, I have to stick with that thing until it's done, and then I have to move on to the next thing. So in some ways it works for me, in a lot of ways it works against me, but yeah.
Yeah, well, I've heard Camilo's like Axe Effects thing where he like plays like, I don't know, like plays some of these old like Landau tunes and stuff like that. He played like I don't even remember which song it was, but man, it was like, I was like, oh my God, he's nailing it. It was like the best I've heard an Axe Effects sound. So if you haven't checked him out, go check out Camilo. He's in the chat.
Camilo is one of those players. I remember where I was and what I was doing the first time I heard him play. It was a video on Facebook, and it was Rick Beato showed it to me. And dude, I just remember watching. I forget exactly what the video was, but I remember standing at Rick's place looking at that thing like, oh my God.
Yeah. What a guy.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, so let's talk about the Shull litmus test for gear. So how do you go about choosing stuff that's going to go on your pedal board? Like, I understand some stuff is a revolving door based on like touring stuff and who you're in the music they're supporting. But let's just say, you know, it's, you know, the Rhett Shull band, you're choosing stuff that's explicitly for you. What's sort of the criteria that you use to kind of choose things?
Sorry, the idea of Rhett Shull band made me laugh.
Yeah.
we'd be opening for I don't know, like a Dave Matthews tribute band or something weird like. Yeah, so it depends. There's a couple of thought processes that I work through. So with the board that you built, the general idea was this is kind of the one-stop shop. I can take this board and go to any gig in any session, and it's been great at that. With the exception being the one time TSA decided it would be safer if my board was in pieces on the airplane rather than one unit.
Yeah.
So, in general, I like to do a couple of things. If I'm going on tour, a couple of weeks ahead of time, I will start to kind of mess around with, what kind of setup I might be going. And I will look at size of the venue, how are we traveling, and how long are we out for, and how long is our set. So those are kind of the things that I'm looking at. So size of venues. So for headlining, generally the acts that I play with, if we're headlining, they're clubs to small theaters. How are we traveling? If it's Sprinter van and trailer, that affects what I bring versus if I'm flying. If I have to fly any leg at all on the tour, that affects what I bring. Then how long is our set? So how many songs and how many different sounds do I need to cover? Those are really the main things. So the board that you built, that's one of the things we worked on, was getting the weight underneath 50 pounds in the case so that I could fly with it without getting charged overages. And it's a relatively easy sized Pelican case. So I can throw it in the back of my truck. I can throw it in the trailer, the van. It can go under a bus, under a plane, whatever it needs to do. And that's really it, man. Then I'll start to, experiment with different pieces of gear. If I've got some new pedals I want to try out, I'll try those. But generally, I have the old standbys and stuff that I know works well. And that's something that's really important to remember. If you're going out on a gig, you want to be confident in your gear and know how to work your gear, especially with more complicated pedals. Like if you have a Strymon pedal or a H9 or something on your board, if a setting gets changed or something happens during the set, and you need to be able to quickly diagnose the issue, fix it, and move on. So traditionally when I go on tour, I take gear that I have a lot of experience with and I know pretty well inside and out. And if I don't, then I take the time before I go out to learn it and learn what it's good at, what it's not good at, and how to, work around it.
Okay. So with that said, Rhett Shull's top fuzzes.
Oh, God. All right. Well, my top fuzz is one that I don't take out. It's the Macari's Mark I tone bender that I bought in London. That pedal's really special to me, but it was insanely expensive, and it's all like new old stock stuff. So it's really kind of a collector's piece. So I leave that at home.
Okay.
Top fuzzes, I'll pick three.
Okay.
First one would be the Jex Telez Canyon Climber. Mm-hmm. That fuzz is gnarly.
And it's got cool graphics on it too.
Oh, it's so cool. I love what Bob Ebeling does over at Jex Telez. His stuff is so cool. Then honestly, the new JHS, the new fuzzes they just came out with, the Smiley and the Supreme. Mm-hmm. Of those two, I probably go with the Supreme because I love
the Supreme
Octafuzz.
is like the super fuzz.
Yeah, dude, it's sick. Mm-hmm. It is gnarly. It's probably going to replace the Hoof Reaper on my board. Yeah. And then honestly, man, there's this one that, hold on, I can't remember the name of it. But a subscriber to my channel, a guy named Norman Mosley, builds these fuzzes.
Shout out Uncle Norm.
Uncle Norm. He signs every single correspondence that, like, if he leaves a comment or something, he always ends it with "your friend in tone, Norm," and I love that. I want to put that on a T-shirt. Yeah, your friend in tone. But yeah, this is a fuzz that he makes. I think it's based off an old Fuzz Face. I could be wrong. Okay, but dude, this thing is sick. They're not for sale anywhere. He just sent it to me, and I love it, man. It's super cool.
Nice.
So, your friend in tone.
Yes.
Norm.
All right, so that's fuzz. Now I want to go your favorite overdrives.
Lightspeed, Timmy. For sure. I mean, those are like the hallmarks. I really like your HRM.
Oh yeah, the EL34 style Dumble one.
Yeah, I took that to Holland in December on my HXFX board, and it loved the AC30 that I was playing.
Yeah.
And then I have to say the Lark, the pedal I did with Zach from Mythos, that thing came out so well. He killed it. And let it be known, I didn't do anything other than like kind of bounce the idea back and forth with him and play test the prototypes and stuff. He's a genius and did all that stuff, man. Zach Broyles is the man.
I think one thing that really sets him apart, as far as I see, is he's such a good guitar player. Most guys that make pedals are not good guitar players. I include myself in that. He really knows how to make stuff sound good, and I think it helps. I think it's advantageous for him to be competent and really understand how certain things are going to trigger and the type of clipping and stuff like that. And so I appreciate that about Zach.
He's a good guitar player, and he has a lot of experience playing really good old gear. Because he worked at Carter for years. So, I mean, he just knows a lot about old amps. He knows a lot about... I mean, he's a huge Les Paul nerd.
Yeah.
I kind of make fun of him a little bit for it. But, yeah, he's one of those guys that he has this undying hunt for tone. Yeah. I got a text message from the other day. He's like, man, I think I found the PAFs for my Les Paul. It's like, oh... Well, I don't know how many different versions of pickups he's put in that guitar already, but yeah, it's just a constant search for him.
Yeah. Yeah, and he also has all the relationships. Like, he knows, like, Tom Murphy, like, personally, and so he's got capital connections.
Yeah.
All right, so that's overdrive. Let's talk about boosts. Rhett Shull's approved.
So this is going to sound like a Vertex commercial, and I don't mean it to, but the first Vertex pedal I ever owned was a boost I bought years ago because I had a Klon KTR that kept failing. So I got rid of it and got one of your boosts. For me, most of the time when I'm using boost, I'm using it one of two ways. Either going into an overdrive to add some more saturation, or just a simple solo boost. And so most of the time I don't want a ton of character from the boost, which is why I like the Vertex boost, because it's just it just makes stuff louder.
Yeah.
Aside from that, I think the JHS color box, using it as a boost,
it's sort of the antithesis of my boost, but in the best possible way.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like you got both sides of the spectrum. And then most recently, the Golden Boy from Jackson, that has a really good boost circuit on it.
Because it's kind of like his take on a blues breaker, right?
Yeah, well, the overdrive section is like a blues breaker, but the boost side, there's something going on there.
Okay.
And it's pretty great.
Nice. Yeah, I've heard good things.
Yeah. Now, I did have one crap out on a live stream a couple weeks ago, so, but they were super cool, and I think it was just a relay that failed in the switching system of the pedal. But they were super cool.
Yeah.
I felt bad, but I was like,
well, it happens. It's if you have pedals out there, nobody's gonna bat 1,000.
Yeah.
So it's invariably that's gonna happen. What about in terms of modulation stuff? So we're talking like tremolo, chorus, flanger, as it's known in Sweden.
Der Flanger.
Yeah. That was the coolest NAMM show I ever had, when the guy asked me if I was going to come out with a flanger, and I was like, what? I was like, I'm so sorry. Can you say that again? I asked him like 10 times, the poor guy.
You're like, yeah. You do that thing where you don't know what they're saying. You're just like, yeah, man. Yeah. Man, I don't have a ton of experience with modulation other than tremolo. My favorite tremolo that I've used my wife Tilly actually bought me a few years ago for my birthday, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, was the Empress Tremolo 2.
Yeah, the orange one.
Yeah, dude, that thing is so good. I still have it. I'll never get rid of it. It's just a really good tremolo. Aside from that, the Strymon Flint is stupid good. The tremolo and the reverb on that. And then modulation-wise, the only other modulation effect I really use other than trem is occasionally I might use a chorus. And for that, I just go, I like the Jam Pedals Waterfall, like an analog chorus circuit, or just the Mobius.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anti-analog.
Yeah. You'll learn about me. I don't have, you know, I'm cool with just about anything as long as it sounds good.
Yeah. Yeah. You certainly are not dogmatic about the analog thing.
No.
Yeah. What about delays? What are your favorite delays? You have a tape. You have a tape delay now.
Yeah, that's thanks to Josh Scott and a video he made. I bought a tape delay off of Reverb, and it ended up working out. It needed a lot of work, but the guy I bought it from was really cool and ended up covering the repair costs and everything. So now it's completely gone through and it sounds awesome. I've got a session coming up in a couple weeks. Actually, I'm gonna take that and use it on. But that's not something I would tour with.
Yeah, sure.
You know, way too many moving parts. In terms of delays, though, the Timeline, that's been my standby for 6 or 7 years. I've gone through 2 of them, and they're just that's the only delay I think I would ever really need. In terms of analog delays, Zach from Mythos let me borrow the. Let's see. The Maxon 8999.
Oh yeah, yeah. I was just Eric Walls was talking about it with me earlier today. The same one. Yeah, it's dude, a fat warm delay. Yeah, it is.
It's so good. I use this in my tone course to demonstrate like Bucket Brigade analog style delay. It just has so much character to the repeats. It's very, very cool. I'm gonna see if I can talk Zach out of this one. Just letting me keep it or buying it. I mean, but yeah, that for analog, I really like that Maxon, and just the Timeline, man, or the Volante. You know, if you want that tape delay thing, the Volante is really good.
Yeah. And I'm thinking we've covered modulation, overdrive, boost. Okay, compressors. You just done a video on compressors.
Yeah, so I did the Compadre video, and the point of that video was I'm not really a compressor guy, but I think I kind of overcorrected. You know, I used to be an always on compressor guy, and then I went against that and just swore off compressors altogether. And so just kind of the overarching theme of that video was, you know, let me try this out and see if it's something I could get back into. And I genuinely like the Compadre. And then I got the guys from Jackson Audio, they watched that video and sent me their Bloom.
Yep.
And that thing's real good.
Nice.
Really, really good. I don't know exactly what the Bloom circuit is doing, but it just makes everything fatter and thicker, and it's cool. I like that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I think we covered all of that stuff. How about let's get into guitars and amps? I know that you're a big fan of the Novo stuff.
Yep.
Why should somebody get a Novo?
Because I think Dennis Fano will go down as one of the greatest guitar designers and builders of all time.
Yeah.
I understand that's a bold statement, and I understand that to a lot of people I come across as just like a Novo fanboy, and I get it. That's fair.
Yeah.
I will back it up by saying most everyone I know who's picked up a Novo,
they're so good. Yeah.
Yeah. And
my biggest regret is not buying the used Novo at Norm's Rare Guitars about a year ago. They had a 52 style Telly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't remember what the Novo name for it was, but
it's a Ceres T. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a butterscotch one.
Yep.
And it was $1,800.
Oh my God! Yeah, you screwed up.
And I played it and I was like, man, this is really good. And I think I was going to go see Tim Pierce later that day, and he lives close to there.
Yeah.
And so I was like, man, okay, I'll go see Tim. And then they were closed by the time I was finished with whatever I did with Tim. And then I think I came back a couple days later and it was gone. I was like, oh man. That was dumb.
So if anybody follows my channel, I talk about the Novo stuff all the time. I won't reiterate it all here. They're just really genuinely great and inspiring guitars, and they're really consistent. Yeah. And anybody that builds guitars or knows anything about guitar production knows how incredibly difficult it is to make consistently good guitars.
Yeah.
Most builders and manufacturers can't do it. You can pick up, Gibson's a prime example of this. They've taken a lot of heat, and rightfully so, over the years for terrible quality control, where you play one Les Paul that's pretty great, and then you play 3 or 4 others that are just dogs. Every Novo, literally, every Novo that I've played has been good. And there's some that are better than others, some are more resonant than others, but every single one is a good guitar.
Yeah.
Now, whether you like the aesthetic or the vibe, that's totally different. I get they're kind of the weird offset shape, and some people hate that.
But
totally
for tall
fair.
guys like you, that big body is,
Yeah, it's a big guitar, and I like big guitars.
Yeah.
But man, just aside from that, I've been very fortunate to get to know Dennis over the last couple of years, and he is one of the most humble and genuine and down-to-earth people you will ever meet, and I am happy to do anything and everything in my power to help bring attention to him and his company and what he's doing, because I think he deserves every bit of it. In fact, last year, there's a modern art museum here in Atlanta, and they did an exhibit on guitar design, and there were 3 builders whose guitars and designs they featured as the primary exhibit at this art museum, and it was Leo Fender, Paul Reed Smith, and Dennis Fano.
Nice.
And I think that that speaks volumes.
Yeah, they're incredible. I really regret that I didn't buy it. I mean, certainly the price couldn't have been better, and it was a great. I mean, the way that I would equate it, even new, they're about as much as a standard custom shop line or so. But the quality of a master build,
Yeah.
And the master build is like, 8,000, 6,000, something like that. So they're really pretty amazing. I would agree with Rhett completely on that. What about amps? What are you liking?
I'm a huge Divided by 13 fan. I've got one right here, and then I've got another one on the way. It should be shipped. I purchased it back in January and have been patiently waiting on Fred. But I talked to him the other day. I've got an RSA 23 on the way, and that's thanks to Tim Pierce. Tim turned me onto that. I got to go over to Tim's last year, actually about a year ago for the first time, which was incredible. That was like making the pilgrimage to Tim Pierce's house was a humbling experience for me and something that I'll never forget.
Yeah.
But I played an RSA 23 at Tim's house, and that amp changed me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm a huge Divided by 13 fan, and it's kind of the same thing as the Novo stuff, man. It's Fred Taccone with a couple of assistants in a small shop in California building these amps by hand, and they're really, really good. It's the same kind of thing, man. I get, some hate from people that say, oh, you're just a fanboy or whatever. And it's like, yeah, I am, but go play one. Like, if you haven't played a Divided by 13, go play one somewhere.
Yeah.
More than likely, you're going to understand what it is about those amps in particular. They're not perfect. They're insanely loud. They're too loud. Like, that amp is too loud for most gigs that I play, so I have to attenuate it. But yeah, other than that, man, a big sleeper amp that I think gets looked over is Mojo Tone. They make, the kits and stuff that you can buy and build.
Yep.
And I have a Tweed Deluxe, like a 5E3 Tweed Deluxe kit that I built and made a video about it and everything. But that amp has been rock solid and incredible. It's a great little gigging amp. It's lightweight, little 112 combo. Sounds like a Tweed because it is a Tweed. It's a Tweed Deluxe circuit. And it kills, man. And they're not that expensive. Yeah. I mean, I could go on all day about amps. I genuinely love amplifiers, but
let's see any other sleeper pieces of gear that we should be knowing about, because there's
orange behind me. Can't really see it.
Yeah.
That is an orange 8030. It's a single channel 8030, which they don't make now. It's different than the modern 8030.
Right.
That is like an AC30 on steroids. It'll do the chimey, clean AC30 bright thing, and then it will go full on, way more gain, way more saturation than any AC30 will go. Orange needs to bring that amp back.
How much are they on the used market? Do you know?
I think they're around like $1,800 to $2,000 if you can find one.
Okay.
A friend of mine found that one for me, and it's incredible. That's what Page was playing, I think, back in like 06, 07. He had the two black ones. They're stupid. If you can find a single channel orange 8030, get it.
Any sleeper pedals that you can think of that we hadn't mentioned?
Man, it's not really a sleeper pedal, but the Chula.
Yeah.
Like I get
from Love
why.
Pedal.
Yeah, I get why Josh Smith loves that pedal. There was one, I found one used here in Atlanta at my local shop, Atlanta Discount Music, and it was one of those things I saw it in the used case, and I just went and grabbed it and paid for it. I didn't, it's like, okay, I know what that is, and you don't ever really see those floating around. So it's really good.
Well, the one to get if you like the Chula, to me, I thought the Chula was voiced a little bright because there isn't any controls on it. Mm-hmm. But the one that it's based off of, basically just two of, is the COT 50.
Okay.
And there's a certain generation of COT 50 that is better than the others, and it's the ones that are in the Radio Shack folded enclosures that are really, really thin wall. Like you can literally bend the wall with your hands. It's very thin. But I think at the time, maybe that's what Shawn Michael had available. But the PC board on it is like the size of a quarter, and then it's in epoxy. But those generations in that folded box are the best sounding versions of like what the Chula does. I mean, because I guess some people Josh maybe uses the second channel of it. But in the really early ones, because I've built some rigs for Josh, I think the first one I did was maybe like 2007, maybe.
Yeah.
And that was right around the time that it was out, and he had a couple of them that were like orange Chulas and didn't have any writing or anything on them. And they were basically just the COT 50 twice,
So I have this, I think it's just like a normal normal one,
Yeah.
It is bright, but the more I play, the more I realize, bright is good, especially in the context of like a live show, because it cuts.
Sure.
And I generally set my tone a little brighter when I'm playing live than I do when I'm playing just in my room.
Right.
But yeah.
Now pair that with a telly with 13s.
That's probably why it's so bright. It's got 13s on that telly, man. Yeah, Josh.
He didn't watch your video, man. He didn't watch your video on the string gauge.
You know what? That's Josh Smith can do whatever the hell he wants because he's Josh Smith. I'm a big fan of Josh Smith's playing. He's probably, in terms of modern guitar players, he's definitely in my top 5 like favorite guys out there.
He's a guy that I think would actually do great on YouTube.
Yeah, he would. I've been kind of chatting with him back and forth. I want to try and do a video with him pretty soon.
Yeah.
Which is slightly terrifying because I think he's Josh Smith.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, so we talked about the gear, your recommendations, your picks, your process. We talked a little bit about making a living as a guitar player. We do have some questions that have kind of come in through some of this. I want to be respectful though of your time because we are at an hour, and that's what I had you commit to. So I don't know if you want to try to go through a couple of these and answer them, or how. Yeah,
we're in breach of contract at this point. So let's do it.
Better call. let's call in the union. Let's see. Any I think you can see it here too. So if there's any of them that you want to just jump right into, we can just go on to it.
Chris, Do I have any guitar tech he recommends in Atlanta?
Okay.
Yes. Dave Honorado from Dojo Guitar Repair. Dave's a very close friend. Dave is, you can find him on Instagram at Dojo Guitar Repair. Dave is, I call him my guitar sensei, because anytime I've ever been in the market for a guitar or an amp or anything that's like a significant investment, I always run it by Dave first. Always. He grew up with his dad, you know, in Ohio. They had a vintage guitar shop for a long time, and they used to go to all the vintage shows. He's owned everything. I mean, Bursts and Blackguard Tellys and all. I mean, he knows everything about guitars and amps and stuff. So he and Ben Calhoun from Righteous Guitars are the only two guys that I will let touch my stuff. I am pretty particular about, like, you know, getting work done on my guitars, especially. I don't take it just like any shop or Guitar Center or whatever, you know.
Right.
So yeah.
Another question that came in was, if you were going to start recording at home using an IR loader style, would you go with the Sur Reactive or the Two Notes Captor X?
I'd go with the Captor. Out of those two, I'd go with the Captor X, because you have the virtual cabinet capability alongside the IR loader. I think the Sur is a better reactive load. That was my big complaint about the Torpedo, is I think the attenuator in the Torpedo is sucks. But if you're primarily playing at home and recording, I think having the virtual cabinet capabilities and being able to get the different mics and the combinations and the room reverbs and all that stuff is better than just having impulse responses.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like the Sur for Celestian sounds. I think they did a really good job of nailing that type of sound. And then I don't have the newer one with the IR loader on it, so I have to do that separately, like after the fact. But, you know, the Ownhammer IRs, I think, are really good with that.
Yeah, that's what I think. You know, if you're using primarily live, I would probably go with the Sur over the Torpedo, because I think the reactive load in the Sur is far superior. But yeah, that's the thing, man. The stuff with gear nowadays is like everything's good, you know. There's very few pieces of gear out there that are just garbage.
Yeah, and somebody was asking you to reiterate, what was the first fuzz that you mentioned on there? Was the Jex Telez?
The Jex Telez Canyon Climber. It's a Jonathan Wilson signature that Jex Telez does, and it's based off of I want to say the Companion fuzz. It's based off an old Japanese, like, weird niche kind of thing, and it sounds gnarly. It's not for everything, but it's cool.
Somebody's also asking, do you know what the PAFs were that Zach ended up going with?
No, because I'm trying to remember. Let me ask him. Let me just text him. And before the end of the stream, he'll get back to me. Let's see here. Yeah, because I want to know. I think they came from England. Let's see. What were those PAFs?
Another question on here is about, let's see. Where's the other one that I just lost? We saw the PAFs. Who are your guitar heroes?
Well, you know, there's the classics. You know, I'm a big Hendrix and Clapton fan. David Gilmour was huge for me when I was in, like, high school and college and all that stuff. But in terms of guys today that are out there actually doing it and alive and killing it today, I'm a big fan, like I said, of Josh Smith. Huge fan of Josh's playing. Joey Landreth is another one of those guys. Joey is the real deal, and I think will go down as one of the greats. Tilly and I got to see him play and Josh play together at NAMM at the Two Rock event. And Joey is one of those guys that's just not fair to be that good of a singer, that good of a guitar player, and that good of a songwriter. It's like, it's insane. Robin Ford, I love Robin Ford. And then Jack Pearson. A lot of people don't know about Jack Pearson. He's a Nashville guy. He was in the Allman Brothers for a while. I think he's one of the most underrated guitar players ever. You know, if you don't know, you should go on YouTube and look up Jack Pearson because he's a monster.
All right. I think somebody's saying, who does the Vox thing better, Morgan or Divided? I think you use a Divided, so I would presume. But you have some Morgans, don't you?
Yeah, I have an AC20
okay.
behind me. That's one that Joe built. That's a 2014. And it's really good. I like, what's funny is I like both of those better than an actual AC30. In terms of all the AC30s, I like the real AC30 the least. I would have to go, well, they don't make this amp anymore. That's the AC20 Deluxe, which I'm surprised that they don't make that one anymore because it's really good. The divided by 13 version of the AC30, I think it's called the Fred's names for amps are terrible.
They're like initials for people. So like the RCA one is the Rusty Anderson one.
Yeah, the RSA is Rusty Anderson. I don't know what FTR is. And I think the AC30 is BTR. The BTR 23, I think it is.
Yeah.
It's really good, but like all of Fred's amps, it's insanely loud. So if you're not in a place where you can have a gnarly loud amp, then maybe the Morgan, because the Morgan has
the power scaling, right?
Yeah, the power scaling is really good on the Morgan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't get behind. I've had a 65 Vox AC30, and it was cool, but man, it was so hard to work on. It was like an old car. Like every fifth time I turn it on, something would happen, you know. And then the one that I ended up getting is John Schofield. I went and did like some tech work for him on a gig with Lettuce in San Francisco, and I filmed it. And we were talking about the Vox amps, and he's like, yeah, I used to have these old ones, but like you can't tour with them. Like they're just so unreliable. And so he's like, I'd have to book a backline in parallel with bringing my own because like mine wouldn't fire up half the time. And so I'd have to use the backline one. And so then he started using the 90s era Korg ones, like the 91 to 96, 97. And he's like, if you find one of those, he's like, I think it's the best because it sounds like the original one, but it's way more reliable. And then the new ones are like not that reliable, or the hand-wired ones sound really different.
Yeah, so I was about to bring up that exact amp. I believe, I'm 87% sure, the Korg era Vox AC30s, the early to mid 90s, those were built by Marshall. Mm-hmm. And they're great. Yeah. They're really, really great. In fact, last year we got to go on tour with Noah, one of the artists I play with. We did quite a few shows opening for Dwight Yoakam, which was an interesting experience, to say the least. But Dwight's guitar rig he plays a casino. It's the coolest casino that's ever been made. It's his signature Dwight Yoakam casino. It's called the Dwight Trash Casino, and it's like if a casino and a white falcon had a baby, that's what it is. It's sick. I want one really, really bad, but they're hard to find and really expensive. So he plays a casino into two of those early 90 Korg AC30s that are wide open. And they're facing the front of house with no baffling, it's the loudest. The Dwight Yoakam shows are the loudest shows I've ever seen. They're too loud, actually. They sound terrible because the stage volume is so insanely loud, and he's deaf. He's got to be deaf. And but his guitar sound was so good, so good.
Yeah, they're great. I got the one that I have one at the showroom in Burbank, and I actually had to get it in Hawaii was where I found it. But yeah, they're fantastic. They sound really good. And if you can find a Korg era one, they're certainly worth it. And I ended up selling the vintage one that I had just because it was just like I was fixing stuff on all the time.
The thing with vintage gear, man, unless you have, it's like buying a boat. Okay, you might be able to afford the boat, but can you afford the upkeep and maintenance and storage of the boat?
Yeah,
that's another question, and that's why I don't really have any vintage gear other than that tape echo, because it's expensive, man. It doesn't work half the time. It's not reliable. It's cool, but I'm just not in a place to be able to afford that and do that stuff, you know?
Yeah, you have to be really careful. I mean, especially getting stuff that's all original. Like I have a lot of vintage stuff, but most of it's all player grade. And so there's been a lot of stuff that's been gone through and it's been upgraded to make it reliable. Because even though I'm not touring with it, you know, basically at our showroom, we have like 16 different amps set up, and then I have those Kahayan amp switchers. And so we're basically like when we're doing a demo, a lot of times we're just switching between the different heads, getting the tone, switching through some cabs, getting the tone. And, you know, it's a huge distraction if we have amps that aren't working and you know, things like that. So, yeah, there's stuff where maybe there's non-original transformer or, you know, reverb tanks go bad, stuff like that. But, you know, they sound good. I don't have a lot of new amps, but I would say that most of my vintage amps, they're not all original, and that's sort of deliberate. You know, I just can't, you know, you can say you have all original stuff, but if it only works half the time, then it's too hard.
Yeah. So I heard back from Zach on the PAFs. Cream tea whisker buckers. He either means actually whisker buckers or whiskey buckers.
Okay, let's see. Cream
tea whisker buckers is what he said. He's raving about those. But then he followed that up with saying his all-around favorites are the Fralin True 60s. But from what he was saying the other night on the phone about these cream teas, they are.
I don't see. When I type this in, I got.
Was there like no website or something?
Cream.
That's
cream
the most.
Tea,
I love
whisker
that.
Buckers.
It's so hipster.
I literally. Oh wait. Yeah, I see. There's some here. He looks like he uploaded a video a couple of days ago.
Zach?
Yeah, Whisker Bucker. Yeah, it is called Whisker Bucker. He did an unboxing and installing.
Oh.
Here we go. Here, I'll show you. Here's I guess Billy Gibbons has a signature set. Let's see if this will work. All right, here we go. Whisker Bucker.
Oh, wow.
Here it is.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, yeah. He told me about it. Came in the wood box and everything like that.
Yeah. Billy Gibbons, Whisker Bucker. Look at that.
Oh, look at that. It's like top of pearly gates right there.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Let's see what they go for. Order now. Not as much as I thought.
400 pounds.
So that's about 500 something.
That's expensive for a set of PAFs, but you know, if they're that good, they're that good.
The Whisker Buckers. There it is. So
I do love a good set of PAFs, man.
Yeah, they're. I haven't gone to. I mean, the only guitar that I have that has real vintage pickups is the 335 that I have, the 60s 335.
Yeah,
but those are after the PAF generations, like the next one after. But they still sound really good.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Well, Rhett, you've done your due, you know, and you know, you can have the union leadership get in touch with me about the triple scale.
Yeah, just let me know where to invoice. For the time here.
And I appreciate you going through answering the questions, talking about all these pivots, the gear recommendations, and all that stuff. I know it's valuable. I can't say it enough how much I value your friendship and that you were willing to come all the way from Atlanta and kind of get me started on the YouTube path. And although it's no Rhett Shull channel, we're about to eclipse kind of 40,000 here any day from basically a zero. You know,
I mean, that's nothing to sneeze at. That's quite an accomplishment, man. And I appreciate the kind words. It's been great getting to know you and become friends and work with you over the last few years. And yeah, man, I'm excited to see what we can do in the future. Yeah, we'll build that new Weird Al Yankovic accordion rig that you've been asking about for years. Dude. Finally, we'll make that dream a reality. That's gonna be the Rhett Shull band, is a Weird Al Yankovic tribute band. I look forward to it. Well, thank you again, awesome. Rhett, and have a good rest of your evening. Thanks, man. All right, bye. So that was Rhett. Some really cool stuff. I know it got a little bit geeky in terms of the YouTube talk, but I think it's important. I really wanted him to give his advice to guitar players that are
considering doing this that are really talented guitar players like him that are thinking about getting into YouTube. They want to diversify their income if their income is not as regular as it was when they were on tour, presumably before this happened. He had some really good pieces of advice about how to kind of do the YouTube thing in parallel. And I think a lot of people that start this are going to be really glad as things start to come back online and you're able to have not only your YouTube thing, but you have your touring things. So you have a lot of different streams and ways to make income. So I hope that that was clear. And I think he gave some really good advice about how to do that. So I was really glad that he kind of gave a little bit more of specificity around that than what I normally hear him talk about, in addition to the great gear recommendations that he talked about and how to pick good gear. I want to thank all the companies that are helping us get this together. Well, the one company really, Boom Microphones, for providing microphones, boom arms, pop filters, and then I guess if you could count Vertex effects as well. Although we didn't use any in this podcast, without my company, Vertex, none of this would be possible. So I guess thank you to me and thank you to all the people behind the scenes that make this work, ship our pedals, logistics, all the stuff that happens. So thank you to all those people at Vertex HQ that are making this happen. I really appreciate your help, as always. And I want to thank all of the folks that are behind the scenes that are making the podcast happen, in particular Hunter Harrison, who is mixing and editing everything behind the scenes, Mason Mejia, who is producing, and also our good buddy Tim Marco for doing the music custom just for us. So we really appreciate Tim. Sounds great, sounds funky, guitar tones are amazing. Until next time, I'm Mason Marangella, the Rig Doctor. See ya.